Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Squared Up Coffee Break webinar. My name is Matthew Long, and this month we're going to be presenting some 2018 stocking fillers. So if you're familiar with the coffee breaks, typically it's myself and a guest on the webinar talking through our content. But today we have so much to share, I decided to pull in about half the company. So what I have with me is a cavalcade of guests. Woo! Hopefully you can hear that. I'm going to take you through a bunch of tips and tricks, which we've seasonally dubbed our stocking fillers. So we're going to do that, and then Richard's going to come on later on and talk about sort of Squared Up year in review and do sort of what's coming in 2019, so a bit more of the sort of serious stuff. So with that, I'm going to dive straight in because we're really pressed for time today. As always, though, if you have any questions, feel free to raise them in the chat, and we'll get to them throughout the webinar when they make sense, or we'll cover them at the end. So make sure you give us your questions and feedback as well. Okay, so first up, I have the lovely Dave Clark with me, who's got a tip on linking to objects in Squared Up.
Yeah, so starting with SquaredUp version 3.4, you can sort of browse to any object in SquaredUp using their names. You don't need to know the SCOM ID ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So you can do that with any property, but typically it would be the display name. So for example, if you want to put a shortcut on the desktop of a server to say to link to that server, you can just use the URL that's on screen now. So SCOM object value equals and the name of that server. Mm-hmm. And that would be the name in SCOM. If you wanted to match, say, on a particular different property, you can do that as well. You can choose different ones. So here we've got the NetBIOS computer name, and you'll note you also got the class ID there. So that's the class that this property is added. So for example, if your server name is server 1, and it's the host name, you can say NetBIOS computer name and then the Windows Server class ID that is.
Right. So now you could dynamically link from a desktop shortcut to any object you like. You could embed that into another product. So maybe someone clicks in your ticketing system, it jumps them over to a Squared Up dashboard. Yeah,
so if you've augmented, say, your Windows servers with, say, a asset ID or something along those lines, and you want to link to that from your CMDB, then you can do that, yeah.
So you could even do cool things like this server's part of this application. If you go to that shortcut or go to this link, it takes you to that application automatically, and you can see how it's affecting it. Oh, very nice. So you got a quick demo for us?
Yeah, I can show you how that works.
Cool.
So if I just take... let's say Web01 here, which is one of our web servers. Mm-hmm. So you can see normally, obviously, we browse to that using the SCOM ID. But if you just replace the ID there with value, like I say, that's going to sort of do it by... let me just change that. Do it by the display name. Oh, wow.
This is
why you should use your own keyboard rather than someone else's.
A bad workman blames someone else's keyboard.
That's disappointing. We're in a different lab, that's why. Let's try again.
Yep, there you go. All our user boxes aren't in this domain. So the perils of having 4 different SCOM management groups.
And hopefully that's going to load up.
That looks better.
Yep, so that's taken me there. If you can also link to a perspective directly, so say you actually want, I don't know, the memory perspective there, you can just append the anchor to the end. Mm-hmm. So I think somewhere we did a demo in the past, sort of adding a shortcut to the desktop of every server with GPO. So you can do that. Obviously, you know the server name there.
Yep.
And then so if you want to sort of RDP to that server, quickly put it into maintenance mode, you've got that shortcut there to do that.
Yep, exactly. Try and sort of reduce the mean time to actually getting work done. Excellent.
Awesome.
That's a cool demo. Okay, so that's our first tip. And Dave, you're very helpful. You're a man of many talents, so you've also got a second tip for us.
Yeah, so it's interesting. This one, we obviously released the Windows Admin Center sort of beta extension a while back, and that basically allows you to pull Squared Up into Windows Admin Center. Mm-hmm. So you can access all the data you'd expect that's available in Squared Up, including the historical data, which wouldn't usually be available in Windows Admin Center.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen it yet, Windows Admin Center is Microsoft's sort of cool new modern remote management interface. It's got a lot of resolution steps in it, but it's kind of missing any historical data, right? So that's where sort of integrating SCOM and Squared Up becomes really valuable.
Yeah, and I guess sort of with Windows Server 2019, that's going to be sort of the de facto tool for doing all this sort of stuff. So that should be available as well.
So how do you get this extension?
Yes, so it's available in the Windows Admin Center extension store. So if you've got WAC installed and running, you can just install that sort of settings, extensions. It should be in the list, sort of Squared Up. You can install that. Like I say, right now it's in sort of public beta, so you'll need an unlock code. But all the instructions for getting that and getting started are all there as well.
Cool, excellent. All right, and I'll keep the pace up, so we'll move on to your third tip, which is around sort of formatting, right?
Yeah, exactly. So obviously if you're using, say, Web API or the SQL tile, you might have dates coming into Squared Up that are in, say, Unix timestamp format, anything like that. If you want to actually then show that as a relative date or show a full date, sort of date timestamp, then you can do that as well. So we have a function called timeago, which is available in the mustache editor. So that's the custom labeling, all of that sort of stuff.
Yep, Web API, SQL tile, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So all the different tiles there. And that's pretty pretty easy to use. So the basic syntax is on screen now. So timeago and just the value. So if that's the web API, maybe a particular column or a SQL column, whatever it is.
It could even be if you're doing reports from the data warehouse. Putting out alert information, that's also all in
so if you're querying
timestamps.
the data warehouse directly, like I said, I think that's stored in Unix timestamps, something along those lines.
The other cool thing is that timeago also normalizes it for the current session, the current browser session. So even if it is in a sort of a readable format, feed it through timeago, and then if you've got people in different time zones, it'll actually come out in their correct region.
Exactly. So I think it expects sort of UTC by default, and then, like you say, we'll localize that.
Yep, that's pretty cool. So that's the simple syntax, which is nice and easy.
Yep.
And then there's some slightly more advanced syntax.
Yeah, there's a few other options. I guess these are sort of for certain particular use cases. So obviously, the first parameter there is value. So that's, like say, the column or field that you want to then show as its relative date. The second one basically sort of chooses the mode. So normally it'll show, 3 hours ago, sort of that relative timestamp. If you wanted to actually show the absolute sort of date time there, Monday the 3rd of December, whatever it is, then you can pass true there, and that'll show that as absolute.
Kind of handy when the thing is like a year ago, you're more specific than that.
Exactly. If you want to see a bit more specifics or what time or date that is, you can do that. The third parameter then basically says to include the time as well. So by default, it will include everything. But if you set that to false, you just get the date there, for example. The last two parameters are a little bit different. They only apply if you are using the sort of relative format, so 3 hours ago. And they basically let you strip or add sort of ago. So if you just want to say 3 hours rather than 3 hours ago, you can do that.
Yep.
And then you can also sort of reverse it. So if you want it to say for 3 hours, you can do that as well with that last parameter there.
Yep. Might be easy to sort of show that one actually.
Yeah,
it's a bit hard to get your head around until you actually see it in action. Yep. So if you ever wanted to have like a custom label or a sub-label that includes, say, how long it's been healthy and also the alert summary or some other information like the IP address as well, you can now combine those together using the timeago. So the question is now, can Dave type? That's modified. So false means show me a relative date, and the second parameter doesn't matter if you're showing a sort of ago kind of value.
Exactly.
And the third one controls whether we print the word ago afterwards or not. And then the last one controls if we say like for or since. So that's just basically making it print.
So that's I think that's effectively the default sort of 40 minutes ago. If I set it to true there, you then see the ago get stripped.
Yep.
And then I think if I add that last parameter in there, I think it's true. See, you say 4:41 minutes.
Yep.
So for example, if you wanted to then show the actual health state, you can say success 4:41 minutes, etc.
Makes more sense, and stops you having to have a massive if statement in there that handles all the sort of
exactly.
use cases. Cool,
awesome.
That's helpful for you. So hopefully, guys, that was a useful set of tips from Dave there on using the timeago function. We have got it documented, I think, on the custom labeling article, which I have a link for at the bottom. So do go and check that out as well if you want to see some other things you can do with Mustache.
Great, thanks, Matthew.
No worries. Now, speaking of Mustache, the next tip is from me. And is on working with the split functionality. So when you're working with custom labels, you often need to dynamically remove a portion of the context of text. So you might have like an FQDN, and you don't want the FQDN, you want part of the partial name. And you can use a whole bunch of JavaScript string functions to do that. And split is probably one of the most useful and easy to learn ones because it will take a string and breaks it apart based on some form of delimiter. So a comma or a semicolon or a full stop, say, and you can specify what that is. And then what you can do is you can combine that with a couple of other JavaScript constructs to display maybe only a certain portion of that. So show me the first bit of the string, or display everything from a certain starting point. So actually, I don't want to have the first bit, but all the rest of it makes sense. So good for when they have the SCOM objects that have like their server name as part of the display name, and it's always the same across the entire dashboard. And you can even do mad things like reverse the order if you really wanted to. So I have an advanced example here where I've taken the string, I've turned it all to uppercase, I've then split it on the full stops. Slice lets you get the contents of that array from a certain point onwards. So I've said get me the first two elements, reverse it and join it together. Now that looks a bit crazy. The reason I've got that there is because, let's say you have a dashboard, if I go up here, where you have a bunch of servers names basically on your health state tile. And what you want is you want to be able to actually see that a bit more readable. You don't want the FQDN there. You want just the friendly name, but the domain is useful. Like in this case, we've got some that are in the sales domain, some that are just in the int domain directly. It would be nice to not actually lose that directly. So what I can do is go in here and change this out and make it the display name dot split on full stops, and then I can do slide slice 0, 2. Reverse that. Join it together then with a separator of my choice. So, and because it's Java, because this is going to be interpreted as JavaScript, you do need to have any slashes have double them up. So that, if my mustache is correct, should, there we go. So now all the server names have changed to the domain / and then the machine name itself. So you can now see if you've got multiple different domains in your environment, which domain the machine's in, but you're not having to see the massive long suffix that you don't really need to see in nine times out of 10. So yeah, the split function is the most useful. This is a bit of an advanced example. If you just wanted the actual display, the machine's name by itself, you could just do .split and then the array index operator 0 means take the first value only, which is just the server name. So have a play around with this. Look up on online sites a bit of sort of JavaScript string functions. They all work, and you'll be able to manipulate your custom labels quite happily and do pretty much whatever you need to do. So definitely check that out. Okay, so that's enough of me rambling. Now we've got a tip from another SquaredUp folks. In this case, Wayne, who's our VADA mastermind, is going to take you through why plus buttons are your friend.
Yes, hi there. Thanks, Matthew. So this isn't anywhere near as technical as some of the demos that have been done so far, but I think it is important to know that discovery isn't the only way of mapping out your EAs in SquaredUp. Discovery is a great feature, and it relies on the data on demand tasks, which get information back from the SCOM agents in the back end. But if a machine's not running at the time you're trying to map your EA, then you can actually manually add things to the diagram. And the more subtle plus button in VADA, which some people may not have discovered at all, is the way of creating a group dependency upon a new group. So if I may have the mouse.
You certainly can.
So this plus button here, some people I think have missed. If you single click on it, you can actually drag a line and then create a new group. So you can actually map out the architecture of your EA to start with, and then start adding individual objects. And they don't have to be discoverable types of objects. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
So for instance, I mean, if you were mad and you wanted to have a C drive in your application map, then you could certainly do that.
There it is.
So you can see, oh, actually, it's a log file in this case. I didn't pay attention to what I was adding. But so you can actually add components from machines in your application apart from the ones which are automatically discoverable.
And also, interestingly, once you've got that manual group dependency, let's say you've added a server to one of those groups, you can now configure link monitoring on that manual link and say, I know there should be a connection to this port, but there isn't right now. Let's go and add that.
Yes, absolutely. And the port configuration is manipulated through this UI here. So you can actually add the port number that you're interested in.
Yep, so you can add your own manual groups. You've got the plus button to add any SCOM component you like to an EA, and you can also add in any sort of custom ports or any custom components as well. So basically, manually building things is not dead. That's still a very valid fallback option if VADA doesn't automatically pick up what you need.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Wayne. Okay, so that tip was from Wayne there on manually configuring EAs and adding in the sort of things it doesn't quite pick up. The next tip we have is from Kevin from our support desk around updating the EA MPs and sort of a bit of support troubleshooting.
Hey, Matthew. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight the management packs that underpin the functionality of VADA and EAM really. Just because, if something happens to them, if they get deleted, or we need to update them on the rare occasion that we find a bug in Wayne's code.
I don't know what you meant about
you may need to basically go and check what the status of those management packs are. So within the system menu under EAM, you can actually, once we get there, you can, at the bottom of the page,
hidden,
see the status of the management packs that we need to do VADA discoveries and create EAs.
Yep. So I guess kind of like with the product, where if you had an issue with the product, the first thing we'd say is upgrade to the most recent version. Yep. It's kind of the same thing here, right? If you're having a problem with EA discovery and that you have got an old version of the management packs, try updating it.
Yeah, absolutely. And and if we detect that that the version is out of date, then you'll see a little yellow icon and an import button there.
And it's the grey ones here because we don't need this management pack, right? So we have the 2014 MPs in our environment. We don't have SQL 2014. So it's kind of ignoring that pack and saying, well, you don't need it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that's on the EA MPs, and I guess it's worth noting, obviously, if someone removes one of those, it's going to stop working as well.
Yeah.
There is actually a location where you can get the packs.
Yeah, absolutely. On our download site, you can get them, and also obviously within the binaries of Squared Up in that location in your Squared Up root directory application management packs, you'll find the MP files there.
Yep. So although the SquaredUp can import it automatically, if you're not able to do that, or maybe your change control process means you have to do it at a certain time slot and you want to use the SCOM console or have to go through a security process, but if you want to import a management pack, you have got access to them if you don't want to do it via our wizard.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so that's the first tip you got for us, Kev, and then what's the next one?
Yeah, it's just going back to the actual MPs that we have to support EAMs. They actually create some defaults within SCOM specifically for SLOs and default availability test client groups. So
That's a nice name.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously, if those things, if you happen to be using the default SLO, for example, in your EA, and it gets deleted, then you're going to see some horrible error messages in Squared Up, really.
So it's worth noting for the SLO, that's the ones that we built our default dashboards to use.
Yeah.
And then for the test clients group, if you've watched our webinars on availability testing inside an EA, that's the group of watcher machines or test machines that gets picked first. So if users don't pick a different group or you don't configure one, that's the one we'll always run with, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay, so these are actually configurable. So, and you mentioned like if you delete them, how do you actually check if they're still there? I've got the SCOM console here.
Yeah, so for the SLO one, I mean, if you go to, well, I suppose we're on groups, so we could look at groups. So if you search for EAM _ in there, we should bring up all of our availability groups there.
Okay, so I can go and edit this default one because it is unsealed and put whatever I want in here.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then these are the rest I've created.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, under service level tracking, you should see there's an enterprise application health SLA, which is the default one. So,
okay. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So if I go edit here now, I can change that from 99 to 95 or whatever I want.
Yeah.
Now, if I have deleted them, how do I get them back?
Well, then you basically need to reinstall the management pack.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's already installed, you're going to have to remove it and then re-import it effectively.
Yeah. I guess the alternative is I could recreate my SLO, but then go and update all the dashboards to use the new one, which sounds a bit more work than re-importing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for sort of bringing those tips up. Hopefully, if you guys have had issues with that or so something breaks in the future, you'll understand kind of how it's broken and why it's not working. So thanks for that, Kevin. Okay, the next tip is also me again, because I love my own voice. So we didn't build this year, but I wanted to just make sure people are aware of the PowerShell management pack because it's a really useful free MP that we have that enables you to create SCOM tasks, monitors, rules, diagnostics, everything in the SCOM console using whatever PowerShell scripts you like. You can literally paste them into a window, hit save. They're now available inside SCOM for whatever purposes you might need them for. Now, we also have this cool function called Data on Demand inside SquaredUp that enables you to take results of a task and embed the results of that as a dashboard. And when the dashboard refreshes, that task is run automatically and the results are then displayed again. Which basically means if you've got control of the script and you've got control of how it's visualized on the dashboard, you can basically take any data source you like, and as long as you can script a PowerShell script that returns data from it, you can now put that onto dashboard and display it as if it was in SCOM. So this is really your get out of jail free clause for I need to get some data from some arbitrary system and embed it inside SquaredUp. So I can do a single pane of glass, so I can have a single source of truth, so I can just embed something. I mean, when you get this request as well, a lot of the time from teams, they're like, I need to monitor CPU every 5 seconds. And you know that they're never going to report on it. Rather than having the SCOM data warehouse collect that for 400 days, just have a task that whenever they go to the dashboard, returns that data, and they'll be just as happy. And it does mean you can create sort of anything you like really as a dashboard. So as a sort of wacky example, I've got a one I configured earlier here. So if I go to opp-SQL03, there we go. So now I can go to my perspective on this object called the Christmas status, and it will show me the naughty list of alerts on my particular server. And then this is a PowerShell script that's been run that's gone and pulled some data for this particular server. But it makes it really easy to template this, target it at objects automatically, and this could pull back anything. This could connect into your sales system and show the number of orders currently being processed, so you can tell immediately, okay, the thing is functioning correctly. Or I can go and pull out complex metrics, do whatever aggregation you like, and then show them on a dashboard without clogging up your data warehouse. So this is an option that's really, really worth looking into. If you haven't seen it before, go and check out our webinars on both the PowerShell MP and Data on Demand, because it is super useful when you combine them together. So that's my last top tip, and I'll stop talking now. So in a continued vein of Matthew's, our next tip is from the other Matthew at SquaredUp, which is Matt Bodie.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to talk about Page Timeframe. Page Timeframe is really cool. It allows you to change the time frame on all tiles on a page, as it says, according to the slide at the top. So this is really useful on a load of different tiles. Basically, anything that uses data that can vary over time. So performance, SLAs, and quite a few of our matrix tiles as well. Performance, SLAs, and health state history.
So the cool thing about this feature, let me actually bring it up and let you talk to this. So dashboard. Okay. This one?
Yeah, this seems perfect. So here we have an SLA and a health state history tile. If we click on the little 12 hours thing here, we get the drop down of the time frame picker. So this allows us to change, so on the fly, the time frame we're looking at here. So say we're like, oh, cool, it's been healthy over the last 12 hours, but actually what's happened over the last 30 days. Without having to build a whole new dashboard and scope everything, things like that, we can just have a quick look at, are we hitting our SLA, and what's our health been like for the last 30 days.
So it's worth noting you have to configure tiles in the dashboard to actually use this, don't you?
Yeah, so this is by default, I think, configured to use page time frame, it will be called, and that will be these 12 hours. You always have to configure things to not use the page time frames.
Yeah, if you go to other availability report dashboard, you can.
So here's one of our default ones, and here we've put on history for the last 30 days. So that's where we've set this tile to be the 30 days. No matter what we do to our page time frame here, it won't override that. So be careful when you're swapping to make sure you haven't configured your tiles to use a specific time frame.
And I guess make sure you label things appropriately, right, to make it obvious.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
While we're here, I suppose I want to give a small, almost half tip on the health state history tile. The current label here shows when this block was started. So for this one, it started at 3 p.m. We're currently recording this at sort of nearly half past. That means that this block is showing between 3 o'clock and now, and all the previous blocks are from the time they say, so between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m.
Right.
And that 2 p.m. will be the last aggregation.
So basically, if you say like last 7 days, the last block isn't necessarily a full.
It's not a full day, exactly. It's between your last aggregation and now. So that does mean these blocks will change if the application or if the row goes unhealthy in that time, which is quite nice. So these are live tiles; they're not just showing historical data.
Okay. And if you pull like a whole year, does that work, or is it just? Really...
Yep, it works no matter what frame you're using, all the way down. It'll be as fast as it always is. Okay. It's optimized to use the best thing it can do. So it actually shouldn't be too slow. Obviously, you're pulling a year of tiles, so it will be reasonably big, because a year of data is quite a lot.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's definitely a feature worth looking at, especially if a lot of your users don't have dashboard authoring rights. Because as Matt said, like speculative, I wonder what it did yesterday, and you look at it once and you throw it away. Like requesting someone building an entire dashboard for that, if you've got 8 tiles on the thing, can actually be quite a lot of work. So definitely worth using the page time frame and educating users to use it, because it is kind of buried up in the top corner.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you're using a matrix style and you configure the health state history and wonder why you're getting 12 blocks and you can't make it do anything else, now you know. You need to fix the time frame, and we've got a webinar on that actually as well, and it's in the docs as how to fix that and specify one of those time frames. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Matt.
No problem.
So our next tip comes from a gentleman who is no stranger to these webinars. Let me come to the slides. It's Adam Kinneborough.
Merry Christmas.
Adam is wearing the most amazing Space Invaders Christmas jumper as well, which is very appreciative, and it's so hot in this webinar room. Okay, Adam, what you got for us?
Just a couple of tips sort of on dashboard design. Like it says, it can be a dark art. There are a few sort of areas where if you're trying to do anything more than sort of simply adding tiles, sometimes the UI sort of gets in your way a little bit. So yeah, using the add column button, even that sort of, it appears halfway down the column, so sometimes it's off the screen, and that's worth sort of noting sometimes. Adding sort of full width tiles back above ready split columns again can be a bit interesting, and people often want to do this and email us on support, so it was just to sort of cover off a little bit, just basically show you how to do it, a couple of little tips, and like it says, we do have a webinar on sort of more complicated layouts that you can achieve using the JSON editor.
So if you're really feeling bold and intrepid, go and check that webinar out. Richard gives us a crash course in that webinar on editing dashboard JSON, and sort of everything you need to know to be able to modify it. So,
yeah,
want to make us a dashboard, Adam?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's say we've added a bunch of tiles to our dashboard because we're very enthusiastic and we just want loads of data on the page.
Yep.
We now want to add another column, and you'll see the button isn't in the middle where you expect it to be. It's sort of down here a bit, and if the dashboard's even longer...
I can see where this is going to go quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So that's missing. Sorry, engineering team who are in the room sort of staring at me now, but here we are. So a little tip is just, scroll to basically halfway down the page and you will find the add column button.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, obviously, you can drag it around and do what you like and sort of add a few more tiles here and there. If you then decide you want to sort of add a tile back to the top, you can see we have plus buttons at the bottom of each column and we have a plus button down here. So let's say we're just going to stick one in here and I want to drag it to the top. Well, I can't. Okay, that's interesting. Pay attention, engineering team. However, here's the little tip. If you drag it to the bottom when the full width splitter comes up and then move up even just a pixel, it's not go all the way down. So my tip's not, there it is. Bingo. Okay. So I'm not sure why it does that. Maybe one of our engineers would like to talk about that at length at some point in the future. But certainly for now, if you want to add a full width tile back to the top, start at the bottom. And it sort of ignores all your columns. And like we said, once you have columns, you can keep adding columns, you can keep resizing columns. The button's always sort of halfway down the column you're adding to. And any of these can be moved around. What you can't do in the UI at the moment is, for example, add another sort of tile that might span these two columns. You can't nest columns effectively, but you can do that through the JSON editor.
Yep.
So check out that webinar.
And also, if you go to the big plus button at the very bottom, if you want to add a new one at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, exactly. That one's nice and easy. And obviously, you can just keep adding, and you can keep adding into your columns, and that all works fine. It's just occasionally getting that one right to the top. And if you have made quite a long dashboard, finding that new column button as well.
Can be tricky. Right.
Yeah.
So thanks for those, Adam. I would hope you don't go in the parking lot alone later on because I think some of the team here are going to probably hit you.
I can take them.
Okay. Okay, so that's your first tip. And the second tip is on ServiceNow.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, this is a very sort of common scenario as well. You use SquaredUp to check out your sort of health data and that sort of thing, but your users are reporting issues into an external tool like Service Manager or ServiceNow or anything else basically. And if that tool has a like a consistent sort of URL format that has the sort of ticket ID in the link, you can use the add ticket button within SquaredUp, and then you can reference that ticket ID and make the button clickable, so it'll take you to ServiceNow to that exact incident, that sort of idea. You can do it using the action button if you use multiple systems, so maybe internally your IT team's using Service Manager, but your users use ServiceNow. You can create custom buttons that sort of target different types of alerts or different perspectives or whatever.
Okay.
But generally you can add a variable to the SCOM.json file within your SquaredUp installation, and it will basically make every ticket link clickable. So in this case, in SquaredUp, we can say, it's incident 6 or whatever, and that will be sort of piped into this mustache here at the end. And so it will take us to our ServiceNow instance with the right variable at the end. And again, that you can use any mustache there.
Yep.
It can be put in anywhere in the URL. So however your ticketing system works, whatever it happens to be, as long as there is an identifier in that URL, you can use this.
I believe that'll work for Service Manager as well. And
anything basically. Yeah. So if you could just jump me to SquaredUp, I can show you quickly.
I'll grab that for you on the clipboard. I think you might need that too. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. So if we just go into our trusty sales app,
conveniently broken, let's say,
in the way of the microphone. So you can see down here, we have a few open alerts, and I've tagged them with ticket numbers. Yep. So this is just how they appear in ServiceNow. So in this case, in this scenario, sort of our users have logged, very sort of broad tickets saying, I can't log into the sales app, or the sales app's down, or whatever it is. And then as the IT team, we want to come and check out the alerts and then sort of start pairing things together and actioning the sort of problem. So if we look at this alert directly, so I basically started by just hitting that ticket button and pasting in the ticket number from ServiceNow,
Mm-hmm.
and the end result is this button appears. This will always appear, but it will only have this call out icon on it if you've configured that URL in the background. So if I just hit that now, it's going to open a new tab. It's going to take me to ServiceNow, and providing we are logged in, which we may not be, no, we're not. It would take you straight to that incident.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So you can then sort of start working on the issue and work through it through your sort of ITSM process. The alternative, if you use multiple systems or anything like that, you can create an action button. So in this case, if we just edit this perspective and edit actions, and in this case, I've just added basically a web button that goes to that exact same URL with that exact same mustache variable included, the ticket ID one. So whenever I click this button, it will go to that URL plus whatever ticket ID is specified for this ticket. So yeah, if we were logged in, that would take us to the right place. And equally, that one does exactly the same. That one will appear wherever you specify ticket ID for an alert. You can use this kind of button anywhere in Squared Up. It doesn't have to be on an alert. And again, any variable from any object basically that you can call through through Mustache, you can use in a URL to make a dynamic link or to launch an application locally or anything like that, basically.
Worth noting as well that Adam's configured that button on the alert perspective itself, which is the default perspective that will appear everywhere.
Yeah.
If you wanted the button to only appear, let's say if someone's looking at networking equipment because that team are using their own monitoring portal and you want to link to that, you would create an alert perspective that applies to, say, all their networking devices in a group.
Yeah.
Put that button on there, and that button would only appear for those cases.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can make that dynamic as well, so it's not just fixed for everyone.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. All right.
It's awesome.
Thank you very much, Adam.
You're welcome. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Okay, so our last top tip is from a man you've probably heard a lot from if you've been following our blog and sort of our mails come out to you. It's Joe Edwards.
Woohoo.
So Joe, what have you got for us?
Yeah, so great tips, everyone. But I think we're all in agreement here. What we really need is a call to action. So that's why I'm here. The past quarter or so, we've kind of changed the style of marketing we've done ever so slightly, focusing on the value of Squared Up rather than the products and features, which our regular coffee breakers will know Squared Up is jam-packed full of awesome stuff. But what does this actually mean? How can Squared Up help our end users? So the last quarter, we've released an ebook called 4 Reasons Monitoring Sucks and What You Can Do About Them.
Somewhat inflammatory title, I think.
Yeah. Hint, you need Squared Up to tackle them. The other ebook we produced this last quarter was Service-centric Monitoring Guide, which kind of shows how by thinking about applications and not infrastructure, you can win the hearts of your IT and business stakeholders.
It's the kind of thing your boss is thinking, right, rather than a technical guide. Yeah,
exactly that. 2 other pieces of content we're pretty chuffed with and pretty proud is the 6 ways you can reduce your mean time to resolution infographic, and kind of working on the 4 Reasons Monitoring Sucks ebook, just a little snippet. The how to get everyone engaged with monitoring. It's leans on some of the teachings Martin Ernst did on how to get everyone engaged with SCOM, which was like super popular. So we thought, we'll just change one word and do that ourselves. So like Matthew, I just kind of wanted to jump in here, be the call to action, and kind of remind everyone of some of the great content we've done, like the PowerShell MP. This little bit less techie, but well worth some of your time.
Yeah, I mean, especially that last one on getting everyone engaged. That is one of the great challenges of SCOM, right? Getting your business and getting your colleagues to actually look at that data. You've got all this data there. No one's looking at it. Everyone's just working in their own little silos. So I think it's definitely, if you haven't read these, please do go and read them. You guys have got lots more planned for the new year as well. And I guess if you want to see something sort of written, get in touch with us.
Yeah, at the minute we're kind of like, it's a really good point actually. We're really trying to get under the skin of our customer personas. So if there's any like key reasons that stick out, like, this is why I bought Squared Up, and you'd like to help us shape the content we produce in the future, as Matthew said, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Joe. Keep those books coming. Okay, so that was our sort of 12 top tips. conveniently for Christmas time. 12. Hopefully those are useful to you and you have found this valuable. There is a bunch of content that links to basically all of these. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the description below. I'll post loads of links. If not, come and check our blog in a few days' time and you'll see some more resources that link to all of these themes. Okay, to sort of close this out and to maybe bring a bit more sensible class to this webinar is Richard Benwell. Hello, Richard.
Oh, hi, Matthew. Hi, everyone.
And he's going to talk us through 2018 in review for SquaredUp.
Yeah, I'll be quite brief. There's 8 of us in the webinar, and it's a webinar room. It's getting hot, so
yes, that foam padding isn't great,
short.
is it?
Thanks everyone for their stocking fillers. I'm glad Adam's demo went well. He spent days practicing that tile drag, so I'm glad he pulled it off in the end. So let's have a quick look at 2018 in review and a brief look ahead in 2019. I think what's really nice for all of us, hopefully, both here at SquaredUp and kind of people listening to the webinar, is it has been a good year if you've been involved in monitoring with Microsoft and SCOM. First up, SquaredUp. Thanks for the team here delivering 2 phenomenal releases. 3.4, the donuts sort of stole the show there, but we had export to Excel, which is an awesome feature, allowing you to export an entire dashboard to Excel, and also the Azure tiles. Matthew, kind of nod there. So really nice release at the beginning of the year, 3.4, and then 4.0. Hopefully, most of you now are really familiar with, where we've finally solved the problem of application monitoring with SCOM. Really proud of our work, and I think that's sort of a culmination of a lot of work over the years where we really wanted to bring everything we'd done and actually sort of finally solve this problem and replace that DA designer, that blasted DA designer, with something a lot better. That's been really exciting to hear some of the feedback from our customers on that. So great adoption of EAM, great adoption of the EAM Plus, so just the add-on there where we've provided some additional features on top of the SCOM capabilities. So the PowerShell availability monitoring and so on. So it's really good, and hopefully in the new year we'll be able to present some more case studies around what our customers are doing with that. Really, this was driven by a vision to deliver application monitoring on top of SCOM. We delivered that with 4.0, and as I say, it's really great to hear now that is working very well for people. So hopefully we'll kind of share more results there in the new year. So from a SquaredUp point of view, and this is just the product, we had a bunch of other projects like the Windows Admin Center extension. So loads of coming out of SquaredUp in 2018. So that was a good year. And hopefully we all feel that from a SCOM point of view, it's been a good year. So new life breathed into SCOM. What we went through that drought of 2016 and 2017 with not a lot happening, to be honest. It's really nice to see there is now some movement. Obviously, it's not still sort of huge changes to SCOM, but there are some changes coming in, and the pace of change is really impressive as well. Yep. Very exciting to hear there's SCOM 2019 coming up early next year with some nice features there around subscription notifications and so on. So long-term issues in SCOM that are finally being fixed. So I think we'll hear a lot more from the SCOM team in 2019. So kind of really nice if you have been involved in SCOM, kind of, I guess, sort of clarity over the fact that SCOM has this life ahead of it. I guess with SCOM 2019, there's a 10-year support cycle on that as well. So SCOM's here to stay. And I think I want to just finish also with a review of 2018 by mentioning Azure Monitor, because I think as well as there being kind of greater focus on SCOM, I think there's some good news coming out of Microsoft, which is their strategy around monitoring became a little bit clearer and I think presented more clearly. The end of OMS, hooray! That thing's not mentioned anymore by Microsoft. It's saying don't mention OMS. So that's really good, because I think we saw that lack of investment in SCOM coincide with announcements around OMS and just a whole load of confusion. I think a lot of people who are familiar with SCOM were a bit thrown. They were told that OMS is going to replace it. They were told SCOM was dead, but clearly OMS didn't replace it. So I think sort of having gone through that bumpy patch with sort of Microsoft monitoring strategy, we're back on track. SCOM is here to stay for on-prem monitoring, and we're now got a very kind of clear strategy around Azure Monitor, and even just by plugging it into the console here on Azure, it's just a lot more sort of accessible and understandable versus the OMS strategy. So hopefully for all of us, we can feel sort of more secure around sort of where SCOM going, and also the fact that we'll see some more investments coming from Microsoft in Azure Monitor. So like a really, really good year, hopefully sort of sets us up well for next year. So I just wanted to finish off with a quick look ahead at 2019. So what are the trends, what we're working on, and some events that we'll be at. First off, just a quick run through some of the trends I've sort of looking ahead at for 2019. One is still this real, most of these trends are real around the fact that IT is still a bit of a mess. We all work in IT, we know it is a bit of a mess. I think one key trend is trying to get on top of that mess through tools and processes. So we have ITSM tools. ServiceNow is still really kind of leading the way with this. We're hearing a lot about ServiceNow from our customers. Probably most of the listeners either have ServiceNow rolled out or probably have heard noise in their business around ServiceNow or perhaps Service Manager. But certainly, I think over 2019, you'll see much more rollout of ServiceNow and similar tools, and we'll be sort of working alongside those. It's a great opportunity to refresh your monitoring strategy as well. So people are interested in whether your applications are up and how to support them. Security is still going to be a top topic. I think hopefully log analytics will see a lot more traction of and sort of rolling in with monitoring as well. Now that Azure Monitor hopefully has a clearer strategy around log analytics.
Yeah, that's
Microsoft will be getting more into this space, and you'll start to see Azure Monitor being used for these purposes as well. And the last one we've been hearing for many years around DevOps, typically around DevOps used in small businesses or sort of SaaS startups. I think now enterprises are starting to have to embrace DevOps. That means you've got some teams in your organization who are rolling their own monitoring, rolling their own operations tools, but obviously have to sit within your enterprise sort of landscape of tooling. So I think there's going to be a bit of head scratching and then sort of exploration of where DevOps fits in within your enterprise monitoring strategy. So some tooling and process changes there. I think the other big theme is going to be more app, less infrastructure. Sorry, server guys. I think the realization is that the whole hosting infrastructure and stack that we typically sit applications on is just too complex. Businesses are looking towards SaaS. So if you haven't moved to Office 365 yet, I'm sure that's sort of on the mind of your CIO. And when it comes to developing new applications, it's just too much overhead to be kind of rolling out a full set of VMs for applications these days. So much more of a trend towards containers and even further towards serverless, where you just focus on the data you need in the database and the logic you need to access that data, and you put that into a serverless platform as a service. And last of all, even on the data center side, again, realization that there's sort of quite a big sort of mess there that needs to be cleaned up. I was seeing the other day that Dell are going public again in 10 days' time. I think they're going to be attacking this sort of data center space quite aggressively with a much more sort of simplified stack. No one wants to be playing around with kind of all these different components as part of a data center infrastructure. So I think kind of Dell are going to be leading the way there. Obviously, there's already HCI sort of players like Nutanix and so on. And private cloud, who knows? Maybe this is the year of Azure Stack. Who knows? Maybe Azure Stack will win the day. And then hybrid cloud, that's been on the radar for a while. I think this is still around trying to find the right balance. Yes, we know that people are adopting the public cloud, so putting VMs and other resources up into Azure and AWS. But I think that's going to be now balanced with trying to offer cloud-like capabilities on-prem. So the simplification of on-prem through private cloud. And of course, where it matters for us is there's a lot of head scratching still around a unified view across that, with applications going up into the public cloud, with a lot of investment still in on-prem. How on earth do you run your IT across those two domains? So that's something that we'll be kind of keeping a close eye on and hopefully delivering some solutions for. So that's sort of some of the things I think are going to be important in 2019 to us. And then in terms of what we'll be doing in 2019, well, first up, the team here have taken a break to present their stocking fillers, because what they should be doing is developing these new features for 4.1 and so on. So we've got loads of good stuff coming. VADA Discovery, we're expanding support for different discovery sources there. Obviously investing in our dashboarding, and performance reporting is getting a refresh as well. So loads of good stuff to come on top of 4.0, which is really good news. Beyond that, we've got some really exciting announcements in 2019 around some projects to take SCOM further, just like we've done with the PowerShell MP in the past. There's more of that to come. So it's great to see Microsoft backing SCOM still and investing in SCOM. We've got some great ideas to make sure SCOM keeps pace with the demand. So watch this space on that. And then the last one, of course, is Azure. So with now the Azure Monitor strategy clearer, that's going to enable us to develop more around Azure and make sure that as customers, you can adopt some of those Azure Monitor solutions and integrate them in with your monitoring strategy. With OMS, we always kept a bit of a distance just because we could see the adoption wasn't great and really the messaging wasn't clear either. I think with Azure Monitor, that's going to change. change. So watch this space as well in 2019 for some more Azure.
Yep, excellent. Okay.
So that's it from us. In terms of seeing us in 2019, I just thought I'd put up some events that we're going to be at in the first couple of months. So Experts Live are trying out a conference in India, in Hyderabad. Actually, that's actually located, I think, in the Microsoft office where SCOM is developed, which is kind of cool. So we're going to be heading out there. That's in the end of January to the Experts Live conference, and obviously to say hi to the Microsoft guys. So if there's something you want to say to the Microsoft product team, let us know, and we'll pass it on.
Friendly things, please.
February, we have NIX, the Nordic Infrastructure Conference in Norway. Let us know if you're going to be there. And then Microsoft Ignite, kind of interestingly, they've rolled out a mini Ignite. So there are, 17 different mini Ignites, so the Ignite tour across 17 different cities. I think there's already been one in Berlin. We'll be going to the one in London and hopefully a few more for the rest of the year. And the big Ignite is going to be in November next year, we've heard. So
a month later.
Yeah, so we'll be there in November, hopefully with some really good new stuff that we'll be sort of developing towards launching that at Ignite 2019 in November.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to wish you all happy holidays from everyone here at the SquaredUp team. We are obviously taking a break from webinars now until the new year. The first coffee break of 2019 will obviously be at the end of January as normal, so we'll get a webinar invite for that sent out in the new year. Otherwise, stay safe over the holidays. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to wrap up now with some resources.
Cool. I just want to say thanks to the team here for all their hard work over the year. Thanks to our customers and partners for all of their support over the year. And of course, thank you, Matthew, for all of the webinars you've done over the many years now. So we look forward to more of those in 2019. You don't get often a shout out, Matthew. So I thought this is a good moment.
Yeah, I've just about gotten used to hearing the sound of my own voice constantly. So. Cool. Okay, so with that, I'm going to wrap up the webinar now. So we love feedback here at SquaredUp, so let us know what you want us to cover using our Community Answers platform. If you go to community.squaredup.com, you can use a Q&A platform very similar to sort of Stack Overflow there. You can ask questions. We're on there, but more importantly, the rest of our customers are, and the SCOM community at large as well. And these guys are smart, so they will help you answer your questions, and they'll often have the same problems as you. We monitor those questions, and we look at sort of what people are talking about. We love to boost visibility, so if you've got a cool idea, you post there, like, for example, I've got this excellent SCOM task. We've taken that, put it into a blog post, and then we've also added it to our Data on Demand management pack. So thank you again to Peter West for submitting his task on that platform. So yeah, definitely if you have an idea of what you'd like us to cover, raise it on Community Answers. You can sign up for future sessions on our microsite, so squareup.com/coffee break series to register your interest, and then you'll get invitations to the webinar, and you can join. Send them to your colleagues or your peers if you feel like they'd be get valuable use out of this content. And as always, we answer questions on the webinar live, so it is worth joining them live if you can make it. But I know it's a lot to ask during the middle of your working day. The recordings and slides, if you can't make it, are published via our blog on squareup.com/blog, along with a wealth of other great content. So it's definitely worth checking that out if you haven't seen it before. We have links to all of our sort of things we shout out on the webinar as well listed there. So that can save you some frantic Googling. And if this is your first coffee break video on YouTube, we have a playlist that contains all the previous coffee breaks. And we have like hundreds of hours now, I think, of content on SquaredUp and SCOM and enterprise monitoring and Azure and everything else. So it's definitely worth checking that out if you haven't seen that before as well. Okay, with that, I'm going to switch over to Q&A. So for those of you on the webinar, you can now ask your questions in the chat. If you're on YouTube, post a comment in the description below, and we'll try and answer that, or reach out to our excellent support team, and they'll take care of you as well. So thank you from me and everyone at SquaredUp. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, guys. And have a good new year.